what are you doing, jackass? Come on, Shelly. If the girls see you dressed like that, they're gonna freak out. I've been telling you guys to stop playing these pranks all the time. Hey, what are you doing with that? Hey, watch it with that. Oh! Hey, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. This film came out August 13th of 1982. It's rated R, had a budget of $2.3 million, and upon release it made $36.6. This was a huge hit for Paramount considering their investment. Now this film came out a little over a year after Part 2 was released. Part 2 came out on May the 1st of 1981. And while that was a success, it wasn't quite as big a success as the first film. So Steve Miner felt they needed a little punch for this film, a little something to get the people talking. And Frank Mancuso Jr., this was the first film that he actually produced in the series. Up until this, he wasn't the producer, but this is the first one he actually got the producer's credit on. And he felt like they should try to bring back 3D. Now, 3D in the 80s, this is what kind of kicked it off, because after this we had Jaws in 3D, Amityville 3D, and then several other titles. It didn't last long. 3D usually pops up for maybe 3 to 5 years and it goes away, thank God, because I don't think it's all that great. Although I wouldn't mind seeing this on the big screen projected in 3D at some point. Hopefully one day I'll get that pleasure of doing that, but we'll see. Now Steve Miner came back to direct this film like he directed the second film. Dana Kimball is our main final girl and she plays Chris. We have Richard Brooker playing Jason and Larry Zerner plays Shelly. And I only bring up Larry Zerner because he's so recognizable. Shelly is a character that's lived on over the years. And now I think Larry Zerner is an entertainment lawyer now. And he gives updates online about the lawsuit between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. So if you check out his Twitter account especially, he'll give updates from time to time and what his thoughts are on the legal process. Now, they actually hired Larry Zerner. Somebody saw him, one of the writers saw him on the street, and he was handing flyers out to a horror film and asked him if he wanted to be in a movie, and that's how he got the role. And this film picks up right after, I mean, the first 6 minutes of this film is basically a recap of the second film. And Amy Steele was originally in the script, or what their idea was originally intended to bring her character back, and she would go to a psychiatric hospital, and Jason would stalk her there and start killing people. But they didn't go. They decided not to go that road. Amy Steele turned them down anyway. She was busy with other projects, so they started fresh and they continued the Camp Crystal Lake story. Now, for this film, the first film was shot in Jersey. The second film was shot in Connecticut. For this film, to save money, because they were spending extra money on the 3D process, they shipped the production to California, and it looks like California. It doesn't look like the East Coast anymore. This is where, you know, this one and the fourth one and the fifth one were all shot in California. The sixth one, they went to Georgia, and 7, they went to Georgia. So you can definitely tell different scenery when they start shooting them in California. This one looks like it's California, especially if you've ever been there. But anyway, the film picks up with a recap of Part 2, and then we were introduced to our main characters, Chris being one of them. And they're going off to her family cabin on Crystal Lake. Now, this is supposed to be the day after, technically. The time frame in the Friday the 13th series never meant shit, and it doesn't mean shit here because this would actually be Saturday the 14th. And I would think there would still be a heavy police presence around Crystal Lake. But nope, they show up, and there's the stoner couple, there's the couple that's horny all the time, but the girl's pregnant. Then you have Chris, and there's a guy there. There's Shelly, and this other girl is supposed to be Shelly's kind of date, although she really doesn't want much to do with him. And then there's a guy, Rick, when they get there, that Chris has had dealings with in the past, maybe romantically. They never really get in. You kind of get that sense, but they don't dwell on it too much, because this is about Chris coming to terms with what happened to her when she was younger at their family cabin. And she tells the story about halfway through the film, explaining to herself that she's trying to prove to herself that she's not afraid to come there anymore after what happened to her. And we come to find out during the film that she had an encounter with Jason one night, or at least she thinks so, and when she woke up, she was in her own bed, and her parents never said anything about it. But when we first get to Camp Crystal Lake, or wherever this cabin is on the lake, it's still Camp Crystal Lake, or Crystal Lake in general, the kids start doing their own thing. Shelly is a prankster, and he pretends he gets killed in the closet, and the girls are giving him shit, like in my intro, about, you know, always pulling these pranks. He does them to try to get attention and be liked by people, but he ends up turning women off. And we see the iconic hockey mask. This is where Jason first gets his hockey mask. But before that, we see Shelly and Vera run into some trouble at the local little mini mart out in the middle of nowhere. They run into this biker gang, and the biker gang follows them back, and they're going to siphon all gas out of their car. And presumably, I think they were going to burn down the barn, but they end up running afoul of Jason. And you know, this movie, rewatching again, I've seen this movie many times over the years, and this used to be one of my favorite. It still is in my top 4 probably, or top 5 at least. But the movie does prod along a lot. There's definitely sections where it's a lot of deadness. There's not a lot going on because the story cannot sustain what they're trying to do here. And I think the 3D, with the directing anyway, holds it back, although that was a lot of the reason why 3D kind of sucked in the 80s. We'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. And anyways, the movie goes on. Jason starts killing people one by one. And finally, Rick gets killed when him and Chris come back to the cabin. Everybody else has already been murdered. And Rick gets killed, his head gets crushed, and the eyeball comes right at the screen, although you can see the monofilament line if you look close enough. And then we have the cat and mouse between Chris and Jason, and finally she buries the axe in his head, and that's the end of Jason. Chris gets into the kayak, goes out in the lake, and Mrs. Voorhees comes out of the lake for one last scare, pulls her into the water. She wakes up, the cops are there, and they put her in the back of the car, and she starts laughing manically, and we presume she's gone batshit crazy, and that's the end of Friday the 13th, Part 3. Things I like about this, obviously Jason gets the iconic hockey mask in this film. I even like his makeup before he puts the mask on. Jason goes long periods of time through this film where you don't see it really close up, or the camera doesn't linger on his face all that much until he gets the hockey mask, and then we get that part where Jason is supposed to be a cool 3D shot. Again, I've never seen it in 3D. And the hockey mask obviously has become an iconic image of the horror genre and the Friday the 13th series. And Jason looks cool. Richard Brooker's a pretty good Jason. He's not my favorite. He's probably my 3rd favorite, but he's up there. I like him. I like his portrayal as Jason. Overall, I like this film, but watching it again, there's a lot of dead air in this film. Again, there's not enough story there to sustain, and it's only 95 or an hour and 35 minutes long. It's not like this movie is super long. It's just there's not enough meat on the bone here to sustain the runtime, and the 3D holds the directing back because in the 80s, the process back then was the camera had a hold on a shot for long periods of time, and you get a lot of awkward shots with things pointed at the camera. The gore effects when they shoot the camera, I'm sure that look cool in 3D, but you get these really odd shots of just people holding shit at the camera. That was the limitations of 3D in the 80s, but I gotta give Paramount credit. They did invest a lot in this film to get this film released. They spent $8 to $10 million after the film was released retrofitting theaters across the country in 1,079 theaters so they could actually project this film. Because at that point, 3D was long gone and dead. This was when it started to come back. And Paramount did make the investment. It paid off. They made a lot of money. They built the house and the barn and the lake for the production. They weren't existing until they got there and built those things. The Marks 3D system was the system they used to make this film, and it's the first film to be made with that 3D system. Other than that, that's all I have for... Oh, Steve Miner is the news broadcaster when we see the scene with the couple at their store, the rednecks at their store in the beginning of the film when they get killed. Steve Miner is giving a news report, so he does make a little cameo in this film. Overall, I still enjoyed this film. I just think I enjoyed Part 2 a little bit more this time. This is one of those films that could go up or down depending on my mood. It looks great in high def. Screen Factor did a nice job with the transfer for sure. Again, there's a lot of dead air in this film and some things that don't make sense. Again, this is a Friday the 13th film, so not everything is going to be crystal clear or make a whole lot of sense, and there's a lot of that here. But overall, if you just want to see Jason kill a bunch of folks, you get that. I think Dana Kimball plays a decent final girl in Chris. Richard Brooker's a good Jason. He's not my favorite, but he's up there, probably top 3 or 4. The rest of the cast do what they can with it. A lot of these are first-time actors. So you could always tell, but they do the best they can with what they have. I think, again, the directing by Steve Miner is fine. I think it's just held back because of the 3D shots, the lingering shots on stuff. Just hold the direction down a little bit, and that was just because of the limitations of the technology at that point. But overall, I still enjoy this film. I would give this film a 6.75 out of 10 right now. I think the last time I reviewed it, I gave it a little bit higher. But watching again, I can see the limitations even more. I know what they were going for. They had high aspirations. I just think the technology wasn't there to sustain what they were trying to do. So yeah, 6.75 for Friday the 13th Part 3. Still a very enjoyable sequel to this franchise, just not my favorite. And this past time watching it, Part 2 I actually enjoyed more. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D? Leave a comment down below, let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video, I greatly would appreciate that. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll be back next week with some more reviews. Until then, bye.